one of Canada's, I believe, one of Canada's finest filmmakers. And when I say filmmakers too, it covers so many things. It covers screenwriting, it covers television, it covers directing, and of course performance. And I'm talking about Mr. Don McKellar right here in front of me. Thank you very much.
Hi. This is so weird to be doing this in the middle of the bar.
Really?
I feel like it's some bad Celtic band or something that won't shut up when you're trying to have your drink or something.
It just may end up that way, particularly around the top section and the food table. But you know what, and I'm thinking about this, and it's been a long time since I've seen Twitch City, but this seems like something that a character in Twitch City might find himself at.
What, Kingston?
You know, in Kingston, yeah, just sitting down, having to talk in a bar and finding himself with a mic. And
yeah, it would have been a good second season, maybe.
Oh, yeah, it didn't last that long.
He moves, no, it did have, it's a good third season, actually, yeah. Yes.
But you
maybe. He was an agoraphobe, though. He never went out of the house, though, so...
and you know what?
How would he get to Kingston?
But it's so, you know, when you would have gotten to Kingston, you would have gotten there by the train. Now, you're throwing the tough questions at me, and I'm supposed to be throwing them at you. Twitch City, I found was incredibly interesting because we don't have a lot of sort of a city-based, Toronto-based, or at least Canadian-based sitcoms, and it's kind of picked up after King of Kensington, sort of took over.
It's funny because when we pitched it to the CBC, so long ago, when that was, they said, oh, this is too Torontonian, no one will watch it, it's not CBC, it has to be more national. And I said, well, it's about people watching television, you know, not, you know, that can happen anywhere. And in fact, in the numbers, it was higher outside of Toronto than any, you know, it was higher in rural communities, so.
Well, and what do you think the appeal was? I mean, I know it was something completely different. When I watched it, I was amazed at actually just, it was, it's easy to say it was edgy, but that's like saying something's independent. I mean, what does edgy mean? But it did have something that was completely different.
Well, in those days at CBC, we could really do our own thing. Like we had a little window there. We could do pretty unique television. That was really idiosyncratic, and I just wanted to show the way people I knew lived and sort of make fun of some people I knew, and it was like my life in Kingston Market. It was sort of based on it was sort of an exaggeration of my worst aspects, which is a strategy I often use in writing. I don't know, I think, it sold all over the world really well. It played really well because I think there was something universal about this guy who's sort of, it was a real Generation X kind of thing. He's quite manipulative, actually, and quite smart, but he just can't do anything with his life. He's like an entrepreneur who can't get out of the house. And I don't know why. Do people even remember that show? It was so long ago.
Twitch City? Yeah, Twitch City.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, it is hard, I think, to find these characters that everyone can relate to. Because they don't stand out, I think, in everyday life. So for a writer to find them, and I think, you know, I mean, going way back, the King of Kensington, a certain kind of character. I would say the Trailer Park Boys do it, and Twitch City did it, and there was one other wrangling in my head that just flew away. But tapping into those characters, those kind of characters we all know, but we don't know them until you show them to us.
Well, yeah, I think that's true. I mean, that's definitely one of the ways, you know, you come up with ideas. I definitely remember Twitch City thinking, I've just never seen that guy on television, or these people, or people. One of the big things about that show was I kept thinking, in sitcoms that I would see, they always had apartments that were really lavish and really fancy apartments. I used to call them couches in the middle of the room apartments because they would have a couch in the middle of the room and they would all want, and I never had an apartment big enough, I had to put my couch against the wall. You know, I said, where do these people, and they're always complaining about not having jobs and things. And you think, they live the life of luxury, you know, like, so I thought, I want to do a show about people I know live in apartments with couches against the wall, struggle to find rent even though they don't want to work. So that's sort of where it came from, I guess.
And that's the life of Twitch City, and it brought you to a television world. But you know, the cinema world already knew you, and I wonder what the transition from film to TV. I remember first seeing you in a Bruce McDonald film as a serial killer.
Right. In Roadkill.
Roadkill.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason I came to television was because I started realizing that maybe it's the way I think. My attention span's pretty short, and I have a sort of episodic way of thinking. And I realized that with the road movies, which are always really episodic, you're going along the road and stopping along the way. And then I wrote this film called 32 Short Films about Glenn Gould, which is all these little pieces. And Red Violin, which was, I kept thinking I kept breaking them up into episodes, so maybe I should just do television. Because television at the time was episodic. Not so much now, but, I mean, there's still episodic television, but now you have these big arcs on the cable thing. And I thought, well, that'd be really fun to play with different structures, because it'll allow me to break free of the structure of movies, which at the time I found very restrictive, the sort of monolithic movie plot, that was becoming really standardized at the time. It was a period where they started writing all those how to write movie books, the Sid Field books, and I felt oppressed by those sort of structures. So I said, if I break it up into little pieces, maybe I'll have a chance of doing something unique.
Wow. And you did do a few short films. There was Elimination Dance. Yeah. There was this Blue, which was really controversial, I think, at the time.
That was my first short that I directed, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the controversy was. Was it about blue movies?
Well, there was pornography in it.
Oh yeah, that's
and hardcore pornography, and which was my response to being at the Canadian Film Centre. I said, look at this place. Someone should shoot a porno film here.
With the couch against the wall.
yeah. And so I turned the Film Centre into... It's because when I was up there, they didn't want people... I don't know, the Canadian Film Centre is this place in Toronto. It's a sort of postgraduate thing, but it's on this old estate where Northern Dancer was raised. And when I was there, they said they didn't want us to use the buildings as sets. And I went, why not? We're here, we're film students. And they said, yeah, but fundraisers might, potential sponsors might come in, and then, you'll block them. And I went, what? They'll be blocked by seeing people making movies, like that. That would be, So I said, I'm going to just shoot in here. I'm going to insist on it. And I'm going to make it look like a cheap motel and shoot a porno film and so on. So I did that. Well, it was all on a plot. There was a plot, and it was all, and I did very well with it. And I sold it to a lot of places, which was actually the first film that the Film Centre ever sold. And then that allowed me to make my first feature, because my short film Blue did well in France, of course, and then they commissioned me to do my first feature last night, and so that's why I really recommend shooting porn as a career tool.
It does have its ancient.
It's a plot. There's a whole plot around it. Yeah. It was an element of it.
But there was, and to be fair, the pornography in that film was essential to the story, and it even maybe one of the first films that used pornography as a story structure.
Yeah, it's just a small part. Actually, when the film got into the Berlin Film Festival...
And when he says small part, he means the...
Yes. When I got into the Berlin Film Festival, but they didn't believe that I'd shot all of it, because they thought that I'd used found footage or stolen the footage for the porn stuff, so I had to get vouchers for everyone proving that I had to get Norman Jewison to sign, yes, he shot it here. So, yeah, no, it's just a part. To me, it's sort of the subtext of the film. It's about a porno addict played by David Cronenberg who is hiding his habit. So that's what it's about.
And it is a great film, and so is Elimination Dance, which ended up winning an award for you.
Yeah.
Now, but you brought up Last Night. If you haven't seen Last Night, please do. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about.
If you haven't seen it, can we just arrange a screening now, and we can...
We can
come
act
back
out one
after.
scene. We can act out the Cronenberg scene, because that is, talk about creating a character out of someone you don't see. David Cronenberg, if you haven't seen the film, does he work for a Bell Company or
the gas company? Yeah.
It's the last day of Earth. Sorry, let me tell you your story.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, and he's phoning everybody in the phone book to thank them for their business, which is a stroke of genius, I think. Last night, I remember it played so well outside of Toronto. I read that you were worried about how it would play inside of Toronto, and in fact, I remember that...
Because I thought the whole country will enjoy seeing Toronto being destroyed at the end of the world. But will Torontonians like that? I don't know. But
I remember the reception in Toronto not so warm at the beginning, yet I read somewhere that you were very pleased with the reception.
Well, oh, not so warm where?
In Toronto.
In like at the festival, it was great.
Okay.
But it premiered at Cannes, and
Yes.
it did really, really well. So I thought, oh, maybe Toronto will have a weird reaction, because sometimes they do. But I don't know. I think I was pretty happy with it.
Okay, well, my memory
Where
was
were
wrong
you?
with that. I was reading the wrong reviewer.
Oh.
Clearly, I was. I saw it in
Reviews are pretty
Edmonton
good,
for
I
the
think.
first time.
But you're right. It did better outside of Toronto.
Yeah.
And like actually, when you say Edmonton, I think actually weirdly Calgary was its biggest per capita. I don't know why, but which is kind of disturbing.
Maybe that's where I saw it. I don't remember anymore. But what's phenomenal, one of the phenomenal things about last night is that we never really find out what's going on. Yeah. You left out the element of there's no meteorite. Maybe there is. We just don't know. That decision to leave that open.
Well, I guess that film, which is about the end of the world, came about with me thinking, you know, I think a film like Armageddon had that come out? I can't remember, or one of them ones around that time, and I thought these films, if it was really the end of the world, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Neither would my friends. Those films always focused on the astronauts and the presidents, and I thought, well, that's not me, you know, and anyone I know. And I always wondered, well, what would I do and my friends do if we knew it was going to be the end of the world? And it wouldn't really matter about the astronaut. We wouldn't be able to deal with that. So I just thought that's not the question. It's really about what you would choose to do, how you would choose to live if it was your last day. And so I didn't want to even have the distraction of the science. I didn't want people to be thinking, well, could that really happen, or that's not too likely, or why don't they just send Bruce Willis up or something, you know? So I just thought that's not the point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a human version of that. Not that Bruce Willis isn't a human, but you know, like I wanted to do a version that was more Canadian for one thing, because I was, like I said, I was commissioned by this French company to do a film about the turning of the millennium, so I was kind of making fun of the Canadian response, which is sort of that Cronenberg response, but also trying to validate it in some way and saying, you know, hopefully people would deal with the bigger questions, who they want to be with and how they want to live.
We're talking. You're talking about your friends a lot.
Well,
this
not that much. I mean, you know.
No, I'm going.
Why do you say that? I'm not going on with my friends.
Yeah, no,
I haven't brought up my friends yet.
Geez, I was going to make a good point about your friends.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you're talking about what you would do if your friends, etc. And you know what, you do have a lot of, if not friends, at least colleagues that you work with. We have Bruce McDonald, we have David Cronenberg, Sarah Polley. I think the list goes on. Bill Martin. Bob Martin, sorry, and all these people that you work with. I mean, what is the community of film, the film community? Let's say in Ontario, we could say Toronto, because a lot of those people are Toronto-centric, but let's bring it out of Toronto. Is there a strong community of filmmakers?
Well, I mean, I certainly used to think that I think it was unique, and when I grew up, there was a period where no one really had any huge expectations for Canadian film, and so a number of us were doing things, and we bonded, and because everyone had very different strengths, and they were doing their own thing, it was very supportive, because you know, if Guy Madden, for instance, I would never be jealous of that, because that's his thing, and so no matter how well he did, I would never think, damn, that was the film I wanted to make, you know. I always thought, that's amazing, he's great. I think it was like that with Adam and myself and Patricia, and because also there wasn't so much of an industry, so that you really couldn't even sell out if you wanted to. And now that's not the case, really, I think. There is more of an industry, the Film Center feeds into the industry, and so I think there's not as much of a sense of maybe quite as supportive a community now. I don't know if that's true. I mean, other people, I don't know what Ingrid thinks about that, or, you know, like, if she's still here.
Yeah, Ingrid's here.
I mean, maybe that's not the case, but I mean, I still think it's a very nice community. Definitely, even now, when I have friends from abroad that come to the film festival or something, they say, wow, you guys like hang out, and we just, you know,
I like Silver Lining, yeah. Silver Lining playbook, yeah.
So
he didn't make it.
So I don't know, I think it was a huge benefit. I mean, I really, really do feel that community and that sense of community we had was really, and I still feel, and I still work with all those people, as you said, it was, you know, a huge, huge benefit that we didn't even know how strong and important that was.
I mean, when we look back at it, I mean, I might be stretching it here. Are we looking at a time of the period like the same, what was happening in Paris back in the 30s with the writers, what was happening in New York, in the Algonquin table? Were we looking at a group of, I could tell.
I'm not going to fall into the trap and saying that was the same, but there was, I think any little pocket of community, you know, I do think that there was a period where it started happening and we were feeding into each other and we got a lot of international attention. And it was an idiosyncratic movement, and it would be capable to discern a voice, or capable for. It was a period where critics were able to identify certain themes, and so yeah, that was a huge strength. It's great to be part of that kind of project. I mean, right now there's great films being made in Canada, lots of them, as you can see at this festival. But I'm not sure there's this international sense of what the Canadian project is, and maybe that's good. Maybe that's because the films are more diverse and there's more unique voices. But I think it makes it harder in a way to sell in some senses.
Well, I mean, it absolutely. I think that it's going more diverse. We got films like Siddharth here, which was filmed in India. We've got films that are very. You yourself actually, and this is what I find interesting. You remade a French film, Ken Scott's, your most recent film, The Grand Seduction.
My newest film is called The Grand Seduction, and I thought it was going to be here, but for some reason
I lost it.
For some technical reason, they weren't allowed to show it or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
It's up for an award, is it not?
Yeah, it's up for the best Canadian film at the Screen Awards this week. And is that why? You said that's why they.
I think there's some weird rule, but anyway, what I think we should be doing is congratulating you for being up for Best Picture.
Oh well. Yeah. Thanks. Well, I wish I could have shown it to you, and of course it's going to come out, and I hope you go see it. Yeah, it's a remake of a Québécois film, which I think is the first time that's ever happened, which I think is great. Actually, I think it's when Roger Frappé, the producer, asked me to do it. I thought, oh, it's so cool to take because, you know, there's so many French films that are remade into into Hollywood movies and things, but I don't remember any Québécois films. And they, you know, they have huge box office hits and huge, really smart films that can be adapted, and so I hope that's a trend.
Yeah, you know what? Well, it was with Ken Scott. Didn't he do it twice that year, getting 2 films?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did an American version of his film Starbuck, which
that was his own version.
Yeah, he made it. He remade his own film in English, which is a strange project, but I mean, strange thing to do, but yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there was a division between Quebecois film and other Canadian films. They seem to. Well, I mean, Quebec is phenomenal for supporting their filmmakers.
Yes.
And I think that's probably why he created this such a great wealth of films. But I was glad to hear you say that you felt that the Canadian films were moving a lot. I do think this festival, without any stretch of the imagination, is a good example of how great Canadian cinema is going.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, I loved the program. I think is really strong, and I think the Quebec thing is changing. They're actually losing a lot of their home box office, which is really sad, of course, and they're struggling to figure out why. But at the same time, of course, some of the biggest names like Denis Villeneuve and Jean-Marc Vallée are doing big Hollywood movies and English. A lot of people are doing English movies now, which is something they would never have done before for, you know, nationalistic reasons. So, I mean, that's really changing, and I think there is actually more integration between English and Quebecois things, which is something I've always hoped would happen. I think it's starting to happen. I think there's more people using Quebec back and forth with the crews and things.
Is there any hope for, I know they say it's impossible, but I still hold on hope that there's possibility for a Canadian star system?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, of course that would be great just because the movies would sell, presumably, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of national cinemas that have compromise themselves in order to get us. I mean, there's reasons why we don't. I think we're skeptical of stars and the sort of the bullshit that goes along with the star systems. And so I think that, you know, there's something I can't fault Canadians for not embracing a star system because they know it's kind of false. I don't know, that's sort of what I think. But of course, more than ever, people and funding agencies are demanding stars, and it is depressing. It is depressing. More than ever, we have to, you know, in order to fund our films, approach American stars and things, and that's depressing.
But you know what's not depressing about that is that it's not hard to get those stars up here. I mean, they recognize they're making good films. So you've got some big stars in the Grand Seduction.
Yeah.
And it's not because, it's because they wanted to make the film.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can get them. I mean, Canada's in a pretty good position. You know, no one believes this. Canadians have a hard time believing this, but I think my American friends in Hollywood are envious of us in a way. Certainly, independent cinema in America is going through a really, really hard time. It's really hard to make independent cinemas now. The more and more these big juggernaut action superhero films, but I think the independent scene in Hollywood is really suffering, and they do recognize that we are still able to make independent films up here, and I think it's true that there is more of a sense that they want to get involved down there. Maybe, but
you know what? No, they're coming up here. I think they're very proud of that.
She agrees. Ingrid. I looked to Ingrid for
well, Ingrid is a very fine filmmaker herself, and it's great to have your film up here, the Animal Project. And there's a lot of other like amazing movies that are. But I constantly think when I look at the Canadian cinema, we no longer, you know, Patricia Roosevelt once said to me, we no longer have to be embarrassed to be Canadian filmmakers. We're making great movies, and I think she's right. I think the Grand Seduction, I think last night, we can hold that up to almost any, like Nebraska, anything by Alexander Payne, anything by Jim Jarmusch. You know, I think the Canadian industry has gotten that far.
Well, no, I mean, I definitely think, I mean, that's why I'm, you know, trying to work here, because I think it's great. And I think actually the program is amazingly strong this year at this festival. So I think, hopefully you'll all agree when you've seen a bunch of these movies.
I think so.
You just gave me an out.
Like a true professional, Don gave me an out. I once, just a little story, Gary Busey gave me an out and I didn't take it, and I heard about it for like 8 hours later. But I do want to open up the floor.
I thought you were going to ask about musicals. You said you wanted to talk
Jesus,
about
musicals. I do want to talk about musicals. Okay, sorry. I want to talk about musicals. Okay, now you may say, why have Don McKellar here and this guy wants to talk about musicals? The Drowsy Chaperone. Please, why can't I get a ticket for that show, for one thing?
If you go to São Paulo now, you can see it. It's been playing for a year, the Brazilian production.
Well,
I could get you in.
Excellent, man. I stood in line in New York City with my pregnant wife, and I couldn't get in. Okay, Drowsy Chaperone. I know Don McKellar, really call him. Drowsy Chaperone. Now, maybe you don't know this, but I mentioned the script writing. He's also Broadway. I mean, how like in your wildest dreams, sitting on your couch against the wall, did you actually think you would be on Broadway?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, that was what was so fun about. I was one of the writers for this musical, The Drowsy Chaperone, that played on Broadway.
Yeah, la-di-da-da.
But we. I never, ever. That was fun about the project, that it was all so completely improbable that there was almost no pressure. I remember thinking, well, so this is going to flop, but so what? This is hilarious. We're on Broadway, and what an amazing story, but it did well. I wrote it with a friend of mine as a wedding gift for another friend of ours who was getting married, and Bob Martin. And my friend Lisa is a lyricist, so she wanted to do a musical as a wedding present. We did this little short 20-minute musical played at the Rivoli, this bar in Toronto, about this size. And people thought it was funny. It was a sort of 20s musical. And then so we remounted the Fringe, and it was a big hit. And then we put Bob, the groom, into the show, and then the Mervishes in Toronto liked it and paid us to do another version, and then these Broadway people, and then we ended up winning Tonys, you know, all of us, because
Tony Award winner.
They were my old high school friends. They're my oldest friends, Bob and Lisa and Greg, and it was just, we thought, an in-joke, you know, something we were doing it for a lark, and so yeah, it was completely unexpected.
So, is there a movie?
Yeah, there's going to be a movie starring Jeffrey Rush. We're shooting, at the end of this year, starting next year or something.
All I'm saying is one of my dreams is to be in a musical. That's all I'll say.
Well, let's see you
one of my
dance.
fantasies.
Do you ever want to sing for us?
I'll do the number for you. I'd like to open, now that I got my musical question out, really, I adore musicals, and I know Ingrid does too, right? Yeah. And we would love to, Ingrid and I can do a duet, just right apart for us, and we'll do it. I'd like to open the floor to questions. This is a great opportunity to talk to or ask a question. Someone who I've admired for a long time, and I know that many Canadians do. And as filmmakers, this is a real treat to have Don here. Any questions from the audience? Over there, yes. Do you want the mic?
No, that's okay. Last night's beautiful, even though it's grim. How did you choose where to shoot Toronto? Because it's lovingly made, even though it's sad.
Well, it's sad, but well, I wanted to shoot. Toronto's actually a hard city to find a look for. I always find, because it's hard. It's all over the place, kind of. So I decided to go with more sort of modernist Toronto, sort of, which had this sort of sense of hope and aspiration for the future, which I thought would be sadder in the face of the end of the world. And then my other factor was I thought I didn't want to have trees, because I was trying to give some clue that something was wrong, and that something was wrong with the planets. The night doesn't fall, something's wrong, so I wanted to avoid trees, which is really, really hard in Toronto, actually. So I shot in Weston, this sort of area of Toronto that is pretty grim. I picked some of the ugliest areas of Toronto to shoot in, but I'm really happy with the look. I do feel like it captures a kind of Toronto. It feels like Toronto, even though it's sort of distorted Toronto.
It's sort of sickly sweet, I think. Like when I watch it, because I live in Toronto.
So oh yeah, yeah.
It reminds me of all this.
Yeah. And yes,
no, they came to hear you, not me.
No, well, thank you. Yeah, sickly sweet. Yeah, right on.
One of the other indications that seemed random is the turned over streetcar.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to, like I said, I was commissioned sort of to do a film about Canada, and I thought, well, I should do it about my hometown, and I wanted to do, and the streetcar to me was a big symbol. It really looked like Toronto, and I thought I had this apocalyptic of this streetcar that was flipped over. But when the film was released in France, I had this poster with Sandra Oh walking with the streetcar behind, and they went, oh, we don't like this poster. And I went, why? It's this amazing shot. And they went, yeah, but the streetcar, it looks like Poland. We want it to look like North America. And it's like, oh, that's Toronto. That's Toronto.
So you put a moose tipped over, and that would satisfy them, I'm sure.
It's funny. I guess they, and apparently they do have streetcars like that in Poland. So there you go.
Other questions?
It's hard to top that one.
That was a good one, yes. Well,
the screenwriting process for Blindness, was that difficult? Because I read the book and there was a lot of feces in it. And so I noticed there was a distinct lack of that in the film, so there were a lot of editorial choices.
I think that there was some feces. He's asking about this film I wrote called Blindness. It was based on this book by José Saramago, Portuguese writer, and he's commenting on the lack of feces in the film, which is really the first time that question has ever been asked of me. There is some, I believe, but you're right. We pulled back a bit. One of our co-producers, the Japanese were one of the co-producers, and it turns out they're not as fond of shit as some other nations. So
the question was more, did you find it difficult to edit?
There is some though.
This guy didn't like his answer. He didn't like your answer.
It was hard because the book is really a really powerful book and a really dark book, and I didn't want to compromise. I didn't want to back away from that. There are a lot of really tough things in it. But I mean, I'm pretty happy that the adaptation is, I think, pretty tough that way, despite a slightly more hygienic look.
I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I mean, it was a tough, but it was great actually working with Saramago, the author of the book, who was very generous and really supportive of the script too. And he's a very intimidating figure, so he could have scared me. No, I had a great time writing it actually. It was a really exciting process, and working with the director Fernando Morales he's an amazing guy. So.
Good question. Oh yes, sir.
Yeah, so are you still really into acting, or are you doing more into writing and producing?
I still act. I'm actually the thing I'm currently working on is another TV series. It's called Sensitive Skin, and I'm one of the leads. I play the husband of Kim Cattrall, who's my wife. Since I'm her husband, of course she has to be.
So that's why she was at the Toronto Film Critics Association.
One of the reasons,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm acting in that. I directed that. We're editing it now. I guess it's probably come out in July. And you know, other things I'd be open to acting in if anyone has any parts for nebbish guys, inarticulate
Nebbish.
guys.
Other questions? By the way, you know, if you one of the at the TFCA, everybody waits for the moment when you go up to do your little.
That's the Toronto Film Critics Awards.
Yeah,
he's
sorry.
talking about. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of an inside thing between me and Jason, but very funny. Any other questions behind me? No? You all? Oh, sir, yes.
Well, was there any question about getting Bob Martin to play in the Drug Chaperone movie, or did you have to get a big star?
Oh, well, Bob Martin, my friend Bob who wrote it, he played the part on Broadway, the sort of lead part that actually Jeffrey Rush is playing in the movie. But he was sort of fine about it. Bob was really sort of pretty okay about giving it up. But I still think there might be a place for him. I love Bob, and I think he did an amazing performance. But Jeffrey Rush's performance is quite similar. He imitated a lot. So, but Bob is totally involved with the project, and believe me, he was fine about giving up. I feel like that was 8 years of his life or something, and he was pretty happy to move on.
That's an amazing wedding present, eh?
Yeah, and he got residuals, but pretty good too.
Yeah, exactly. Man, a wedding present that turns into a career. Well, wait a minute, there's another side part to that anyway. Anybody else? Let me just get to this woman at the back, and we'll get to you.
I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard that a lot of filmmakers had approached Jose Saramago to do that film, and I'm just wondering, what was different about you? Like, how did you convince him to?
Well, she's asking about the fact that a lot of people had approached Saramago about the blindness rights, and that's true. We approached him with the film company I was working with, Rhombus, and then he won the Nobel Prize, and then he got a lot of offers, and he rejected them all. I think the reason why he gave it to us is, I always say that every now and then it's a real advantage to be Canadian, and I really think it really helped in that case. At the time, for instance, he was really not a fan of the American president, who was George Bush, and his policies, and he was, and you know, they would approach him from Hollywood in a way that he thought was really arrogant, and trying to sort of buy him out with more and more money, and it was not an issue. And they approached him really badly because he was 90 years old, he's a communist, he lives in the Canary Islands on top of a volcano, like a weird James Bond villain, and it's not, he's got a beautiful Spanish wife, and the way to win him over was not to keep offering more and more money and not talk to him about the content of the film. And so at one point he said, well, maybe if I give you this, maybe it's because you're Canadian. I said, yeah, we're Canadian. So so every now and then, you know, I'm not sure if that would work right now, but that was one of the main reasons. But also we just told him honestly that we were going to do it, you know, with integrity and maintain. We talked to him about the book and how I was going to do it and what I was going to maintain. And he said, "Well, are you going to put the feces in?" I said, "I don't know, maybe not quite so much." He said, "Okay, well, you know." And he gave it to us. Yeah. So it was really, really an honor.
One more?
Yeah, this is a kind of a weird one, and it might not have an answer, but in Last Night, there's a scene where you're shuffling through a bunch of CDs and you're on the phone and you're saying, no, that's for Christmas. And I'm wondering, it's a one-sided conversation, what the album was, if you had it in your head, what that Christmas album was.
Wow!
I should have read it probably.
Those questions
I
are
love that
unbelievable.
question. I
That's
love
a
that
fantastic question.
It's so funny, and I know there's so many possible Christmas albums.
My mother when I was a kid, my mother was a big fan of the Messiah. And I always thought, oh, well, my mother would probably, she always sings, "I know that my Redeemer cometh." She would say, "Why do you put that on?" You know, like, I always imagined that's what she would say if it was the end of the world. It would be like a really big choir singing, and it was a way of saying, "No, Mom." That's what I had in mind.
It was the Muppet Christmas
I don't.
album.
Did you think that? Is that what you thought, or was it the Rita McNeil Christmas special? Or? Really? That was what your mother thought? Really? Oh yeah, yeah. The Hallelujah Chorus would be like a funny end of the world thing. So I don't know. That's what I thought. Wow, what a question though.
That was a good one. The Grand Seduction will be released. It played to great attention with audiences at TIFF. It's up for Best Picture, a screenplay as well.
Screenplay, and actor, and supporting actor. So
sweeps.
Yeah, that's going to come out in May 30th or something, or 31st or something. I hope it'll play here. Do you still have a theater other than that one that's
No,
closed?
they have a nice. They have a big one, but man, that one's beautiful.
It's not
No,
nice.
but
It's a horrible theater.
Maybe,
Please
but they play movies
bear
in it
that.
still. So
Yeah.
it's well worth.
It's worth
seeing. It's
enduring
well
that
worth
horrible
seeing.
cinema.
Yeah, and the trip out there too. Why did they put it out so far? You don't even get a cab there. Okay, I'm on to something else.
There's that.
One last chance for one last question.
You don't have to squeeze them dry.
No?
They want.
No, is this
they
it?
want a drink.
All right, should we let you drink? I want to thank Mr. McKellar for joining us. It's been an honor to sit here beside you and
Thank
chat
you.
with you.
Thank you all. Have a good festival. Thank you.